It's wild how fast the tide can turn, especially in elite circles where loyalty has an expiration date and image is currency. Meghan Markle just got a brutal reminder of that. Because when Serena Williams, her longtime friend and public defender, hosted an ultra-exclusive girls' trip to Lake Como, Meghan wasn't just missing, she was deliberately left out. And in Hollywood, that silence? That's louder than any headline. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We bring you stories the mainstream won't touch, drama, truth, and the untold power plays behind the smiles. Now back to the story. You'd think a bond like theirs would count for something. Serena had stood by Meghan through royal scandals, media storms, and even that infamous Oprah interview. She went to Meghan's wedding. She praised her in interviews. They were the definition of ride or die, or so we thought. Because when it came time to handpick a group of women to join her for a luxurious getaway in Italy, Meghan's name didn't even make the draft list. And insiders say this wasn't a scheduling issue. It was a statement. This wasn't just a girls' trip. It was a carefully curated circle of powerhouses, women with global influence, reputations to protect, and one thing in common: they wanted peace, not press. Among the women invited was Emma Thynn, the Marchioness of Bath. Yes, the same Emma who made history as the first Black Marchioness in British high society. The same Emma who moves with grace, elegance, and silence, and has somehow managed to rise in social stature without ever needing to chase a headline. Everything Meghan once claimed to be, Emma simply is. The contrast couldn't be more brutal. While Meghan's every move is laced with controversy, Emma floats above the chaos. Where Meghan demands attention, Emma attracts it. One crafts viral narratives, the other lives a legacy. And in the world of Serena Williams, that difference meant everything. Meghan, of course, noticed the exclusion immediately. She wasn't just blindsided, she was humiliated. According to sources close to the situation, Meghan tried reaching out. Voice notes, texts, a few hopeful check-ins with other women in the circle. But the responses, if any, were painfully polite. Serena herself never responded directly. One reply said they were just keeping it chill this time. Translation: you're not welcome, but it wasn't just the trip. That was the symptom. The real sickness was already setting in, quiet, creeping, and irreversible. Meghan's presence had become exhausting. She used to be in a group chat with Serena and a handful of other high-profile women. Think moguls, actresses, influencers. That chat used to buzz with excitement, but over time, it changed. Every conversation somehow looped back to Meghan. A friend would share a career win, and Meghan would pivot the conversation into her own struggles. Another woman would celebrate a family milestone, and Meghan would use it to bring up how hard it was for her to be a royal outsider. It wasn't malicious, but it was constant. Eventually, the group chat went dark. A new one popped up. Same women, minus Meghan. And that's when it became crystal clear. The circle had quietly closed, and Meghan wasn't in it. To understand how it got this far, we need to rewind a little. Meghan Markle wasn't always seen as chaotic. In fact, there was a time when her story was magnetic. An American actress breaking into British royalty, a biracial woman challenging centuries of aristocratic tradition, that was the narrative. People admired her. They saw courage, defiance, vulnerability. But somewhere along the line, something shifted. What started as a powerful underdog story turned into a never-ending grievance tour. Every podcast, every press release, every documentary seemed to echo the same theme: misunderstood, mistreated, misrepresented. For a while, that worked. Sympathy turned into support. But over time, it all started to sound like static. Even her closest allies started pulling back, and that's where Serena comes in. For years, she publicly supported Meghan, through criticism, through PR disasters, through royal fallout. But behind the scenes, something was brewing. According to someone close to Serena's inner circle, it wasn't one big event that changed things. It was a slow drain, a steady stream of drama. And Serena, who's now laser-focused on building her empire, business, fashion, philanthropy, and motherhood, realized she couldn't afford to be collateral damage in Meghan's next media mess. As one of her business partners reportedly said, "If Meghan's coming, you can kiss discretion goodbye." Let that sink in, because discretion is the new power in Hollywood. The ability to be in the room and not trend on Twitter, to build without noise, to exist without needing a camera crew. And Meghan, whether she realizes it or not, has become the opposite of that. But what makes this story even more brutal isn't just who was excluded, it's who was included. Emma Thynn didn't claw her way into that Lake Como trip with press releases or podcast confessions. She didn't broadcast her every move, nor did she ever try to turn her heritage into a weapon. She simply lived it, with grace, intelligence, and calm. Emma and Meghan actually have a lot in common, on the surface. Both women are mixed race. Both broke barriers in extremely traditional institutions. Both entered elite circles that weren't exactly built for them. But the way they handled that pressure couldn't be more different. Meghan turned every moment into a spotlight. Every interaction became a platform. Every setback, a press tour. Meanwhile, Emma chose silence. She let her work, her poise, and her presence speak for her. She's been quietly building philanthropic programs, navigating British society, attending high-level events, and somehow her name never ends up in tabloids. There are no tell-alls, no Netflix specials, no staged podcast confessions, and that's exactly why she's becoming the woman Hollywood prefers. Because the reality is, Meghan Markle didn't just get cut off from a vacation. She got filtered out of a social class that speaks in subtext, where power doesn't shout. It whispers. And here's where things get colder. After finding out about the Lake Como trip, through whispers, not invites, Meghan reportedly spiraled into what one insider called a PR panic. She started strategizing. She reached out to a few of the women involved, trying to clarify, maybe reconnect. But the responses were short, polite, empty. One of the women reportedly said, "We're trying to keep things really chill right now." That wasn't a rejection. That was a freeze-out. But the most cutting part? It wasn't done with malice. It wasn't personal. It was strategic. These women weren't looking to hurt Meghan. They were simply tired of her brand. A brand that once screamed empowerment, but now just felt like a never-ending cycle of victimhood and PR manipulation. And Meghan knows this. She built her empire on controlling the narrative, on crafting the perfect message. But lately, that message isn't landing. Her Netflix deal, once touted as bold and groundbreaking, has quietly stumbled. Behind the scenes, sources say there were endless creative disagreements. Scripts were shelved, concepts scrapped. A producer even allegedly said, "She doesn't know how to make it about the audience. It's always about her." And in Hollywood, that's not just bad for business. It's fatal. Executives want connection. They want relatability. They want stories that make viewers feel something. Meghan's insistence on framing every project as a personal struggle alienated the very people who once rooted for her. And even worse, her own team reportedly struggled to keep up with the constant image curation. One former staffer claimed, "Every pitch, every draft, every interview had to be filtered through Meghan's own trauma narrative, and that kind of control, it doesn't inspire creativity, it smothers it." Meanwhile, back in Serena's world, things couldn't be more different. She's entering what her inner circle calls her peace era, a time for legacy building, quiet power moves, and family. And the last thing she needs is to be linked to headlines she didn't write. Serena doesn't want her next brand launch overshadowed by Meghan's latest controversy. She doesn't want her philanthropic work drowned out by tabloid noise. That's why the Lake Como trip wasn't just a vacation. It was a recalibration, a sorting of energies, an unspoken but crystal clear message. This is the circle now, and you're not in it. And it's not just Serena, Oprah, Gayle, Tyler Perry. All the powerful figures who once embraced Meghan have begun backing away, slowly, professionally. With a smile, sure, but with distance. Some still speak kindly of her in public, but none are signing up to be part of her next big thing. Because being linked to Meghan no longer feels like progressive rebellion. It feels like a brand liability. And Hollywood moves fast. One week, you're a queen piece. The next, you're off the board. The most haunting part? Meghan Markle doesn't seem to fully realize she's being phased out. Not yet. In her mind, she may still believe she's the centerpiece, the voice of reason, the underdog who dared to speak truth to power. But to those around her, especially in Hollywood, that narrative has expired. People aren't listening the way they once did. Not because they disagree, but because they're exhausted. And in elite circles, exhaustion is dangerous. It doesn't result in confrontation. It results in isolation. One executive, speaking off the record, described meetings with Meghan as emotionally draining. Not because she was unkind, but because she brought baggage. Too many handlers, too much spin, not enough substance. She's a walking press release, another source allegedly said. Every sentence is rehearsed. Every conversation feels like a setup for a quote. In a town where authenticity is the most valuable currency, Meghan's reputation is hemorrhaging. Value. And then there's Emma Thynn. Emma represents everything Meghan used to aspire to, except Emma got there without the war paint, without the Netflix cameras, without sacrificing her relationships to the altar of image control. She's not out here rebranding herself every season. She doesn't need to post carefully posed candids on Instagram to remind people of her grace. She just is. Philanthropic, regal, grounded, present. And for women like Serena Williams, who are building legacy wealth, raising children, and cultivating timeless influence, that is the energy they want around them. The Lake Como trip was the perfect embodiment of that new standard. No press, no PR, just intentional luxury, quiet bonding, and women who know the difference between power and attention. And Meghan? She found out about it through secondhand stories, whispers, photos not meant for her. And for someone who once prided herself on being at the center of the room, hearing the laughter from outside the door was more than rejection. It was humiliation. There was a time Meghan Markle was unstoppable. She captured the world's imagination. The American actress turned duchess. The fairy tale, the rebel, the revolutionary. But fairy tales don't last when the heroine refuses to evolve. Meghan's brand remained frozen in outrage while the world around her moved toward refinement. Emma evolved. Serena evolved. Oprah, Gayle, Tyler, they all evolved. But Meghan? She's still fighting the same battles, still telling the same story, still pitching the same grievance. And now, the people who once amplified her voice are choosing silence. Because here's the truth. Hollywood rarely says out loud, drama has a shelf life. And once the spectacle outweighs the substance, doors don't slam. They just quietly stop opening. Even Meghan's new ventures reflect the shift. Her latest podcast attempt? Teased but not delivered. Her lifestyle brand? Met with lukewarm interest and eye rolls from fashion insiders. Her staged photo ops? Beautiful, yes, but lacking impact. They don't trend. They don't resonate. Because the audience, both public and private, is no longer moved by the performance. They're watching someone who used to set fire to the narrative now struggle to light a match. And Emma? Emma doesn't need to light anything. She glows. The glow that Emma Thynn carries isn't loud. It's not curated. It doesn't scream for attention. It simply commands it. She isn't on red carpets weekly. She's not doing interviews to set the record straight. She's not dropping memoirs, documentaries, or audio series promising the real story. Instead, she shows up when it matters, speaks when it counts, and disappears when the cameras come out. And ironically, that's exactly what keeps her in demand. In the elite circles that Meghan Markle once ran in, this is the unspoken truth. Quiet is power. Discretion is the new rebellion. Restraint is the new bold. Meghan, for all her strength and intelligence, never seemed to get the memo. She mistook visibility for impact. She assumed that speaking louder meant being heard more clearly. She believed that dominating a room meant owning it. But Emma understood. Something Meghan didn't. You don't have to be loud to be unforgettable.